Today I'm just gonna tinker with this buzz saw, see if I can get a motor added onto it, and let's see what we can do, see if we can get it running today or not. I don't know. I showed you this saw the other day. I'm gonna take it up to the garage and see about adding a piece of wood to the bottom and maybe find a way to mount a motor on there and see how it goes. Now this rope is tied off down there. There's an eye bolt. They're bent off on each end. Let me just show you. This is on two 4x, and even holding the camera in one arm, holding the camera in one hand, I can still manage to pull this with the other hand. I'll pull this up to the garage here and see about mounting the motor onto it. Actually pulls pretty nice though. Right up to the garage. No problem. Now, I gotta decide what I want to do here. There's a sheave there, so I was thinking originally about mounting the motor back here, but the more I'm looking at this, I'm gonna mount a piece of wood down here on the bottom, put a motor on here, and see if I can run the belt straight up and down. So let's see how that goes. Okay, sometimes you gotta play the game a little bit here. I've got two motors. The one is the Briggs & Stratton that I showed you the other day. 5 horse I've had sitting around. This used to be on a go-kart. It's outside for a number of years, and I knew I was gonna have a couple of issues with it. This one here is a Craftsman, but I think if you look at the two motors, they're almost identical. I think it's also Briggs & Stratton with Craftsman stickers on it. This came off with a tiller a number of years ago, and used it on a mini bike for a little while, but it's been sitting in the garage for a number of years, and I know I have issues with this one. So this one is missing an air filter, and the oil plug on it is cracked. This one, the gas tank leaks and everything's rusted up pretty bad on it. So what I did was I took the oil plug off of this one. You see how this one's broke now. I took the good one off of this one and put it on this one. Took the cracked one and put it over here with this junk one. Then I took the air filter off of this. I put the housing on here. It doesn't quite match, and I don't want to drill it, so what I did was I epoxied it on there. And I think once that epoxy dries, which is why I have these hammers and that drill laying on there just to hold a little bit of weight on there till that epoxy dries, I think that epoxy will glue that plastic to that little steel housing, and then I can put this air filter on this motor. So then I'll have an air filter. Now the next problem I have is this is made for a tiller, and the plate on it for the choke and the run and the throttle is gone. So the choke on this one actually has a choke here, choke out and in, but the throttle, I added a longer screw here so I can put a little bit more adjustment to hold the throttle one way or the other, and I put the spring over from one side to the other to clip it on there so that I can adjust the throttle to whatever I want it to be on there. I put fresh oil in it, fresh gas in it, and this motor runs, and it runs good. So I think this will do the trick for what I want to do. And since I had this on a mini bike last, I have a belt pulley on here, which will be perfect, because this belt pulley, hopefully I can align it over here with this belt pulley, and see if I have any V-belts laying around. That'll be my next step. So I have the motor almost ready to go. As soon as that epoxy is done drying, put the air filter back on it, and then I'm going to need to put some kind of a mount down here on the bottom and try to align it. So let's see how we go, see what happens here. Just give you a little update on where I'm at here. I got the motor mounted. Now what I did was I took 2 pieces of oak and laid them in there underneath so that they're up about the same thickness as the angle iron there. And then on top of that, I had a piece of 2-inch pine that I had from that project I made those steps to the back of my house. I had a couple pieces of that left over. So I used that to lay it out far enough to get the motor mounted onto it. And I don't really have a whole lot of steel laying around to make an adjustable rig there so I can tension the belt. So what I did have was a piece of angle iron that from the sawmill left over, this piece here, and I got a piece of all thread threaded into the hole that I had drilled for the feet on the saw at one time. I put a nut on this side, I come out, I put 2 nuts on here, I put an idle pulley here. There's a bearing in there, so this is just a tensioner. I put a spring that goes from here down to the far end down there, so this is on a spring and it'll tension that pulley up as it runs. So there's a pulley on the motor, tension pulley there, and the pulley up here, so that I can use some different size belts on this. Now, the funny thing of it is, I spent $25 on the saw, and I think I spent $20 or more. I think I actually spent about $30 in parts between a piece of all thread and just that little idle pulley there. Unbelievable. You can't go to the store and buy anything anymore. Everything is so ridiculously priced. Just a piece of all thread, 2 belts, and a pulley. I think my bill was 32 bucks. Now I shouldn't really consider the other belt because I'm only using one of the belts. I'm not using both of them, but still, I spent more money just in that belt, that pulley, and that piece of all thread than I did in the rest of the saw. Now the motor is running pretty good. I just unplugged the spark plug to shut it off, but I did have the blade on here, and I actually cut this piece of wood here with that blade that was on there. You see how big that cut is on the blade. Now, the blade was moving around a little bit on me, and I wanted to check everything out before actually cutting real wood on this. So I took this nut and the clamp on here that holds the blade on there. I took them off, and what I found was the saw blade was actually sitting on a piece of tape, a piece of electrical tape, and a piece of wire. Because the saw blade, I took a set of calipers here and I measured the shaft. The shaft is actually 1 1/8", and the old saw blade, which I laid in here, actually has 1 3/8" hole. So that hole is huge compared to the shaft that's on here. Now, this other blade that I have that I want to put on here is just a little bit too big. It hits this guard. So I'm thinking maybe I'll take that guard off of there. Not like it's doing a whole lot anyway. And if I put that blade on there, the hole for the center shaft on that one is 1 1/2". So I have 1 1/2" hole, and I have 1 1/8" shaft. So what I'm going to end up doing is making a bushing. I'll have to get a friend of mine has a lathe, cut me a bushing down. It's going to have to be 1 1/8" on the inside and 1 1/2" on the outside, and it'll slide over this shaft so that I can fit this bigger blade on here. Take this off of here, you can see that the shaft, this clamshell here, or whatever you want to call it, this cup actually comes out here and cups the outside of the blade, so it's really putting pressure on just this outside edge here. It's not putting pressure on the center. So what I'm going to do is I get that bushing go on here out to where the threads start, from here back to there. So when the blade goes on, the blade will be onto that bushing to keep it centered, so the blade doesn't slide in or out. And then these 2 cups here will hold the blade, and then the nut, of course, holds the clamps together on the blade. So that's my plan. So I think for right now, I'm kind of deadheaded here. I think I'm gonna have to just let this go for a little bit until I get that bushing made up. Once I get that bushing made up, and I'm gonna grease this shaft. I didn't grease it yet. I should have greased it before I ran it at all, but it seems like there's still some grease in there. It still runs, it still glides pretty nice. So that little bit that I did run it, I'm not too concerned about. On a side note here, I was looking at this thing a little bit. This saw itself has a little nameplate on it here. This little nameplate, I'm not sure how well you're going to be able to see that. But that little nameplate says right there on the bottom of it, it says Sears, Roebuck, and Incorporated. Sears, Roebuck, Incorporated. And that was the original company before Sears became the Sears we all know as Sears and Craftsman, and before Kmart bought them out here in 2005. But this is actually I think an actual manufactured saw. It has a nameplate on it anyway. I tried looking up the model number, of course nothing comes up. You know, I don't know what year this thing would be. I don't know. But it's got that sticker on there, says I got a horse, wheel horse of course. Now that, I think, I don't know if that was from the saw or if that was from a tractor, or somebody just stuck the sticker on there. I kind of doubt the sticker would hold up and the steel would be rusting, but it's possible, I guess. I don't know. Kind of looks like a saw blade there in the bottom corner there by this, where the end of the horse's head there is. So I don't know if that was original to the saw or if that was something from a tractor that somebody just stuck the sticker on the saw. I don't know. But that's where I'm at. I think that's where I'm going to be for about a week or so until I get that sleeve made for the saw blade, and then we'll go from there. This thing sounds nasty. I mean, just starting that motor up and having that motor run like that, and that saw blade starts picking up speed, it starts to, you know, whistle. It sounds very, very nasty. You know, I think everybody's gonna be afraid of the saw when I tell them I'm done with it. But I don't think I'm gonna have any issues with it. I think for what I'm doing here, you know, it's gonna be a good saw. Put your slab wood up here on the table just like that, and you just rock this table right into your saw blade. Of course I got my saw blade down here in the way. But you put your slab wood up there on the table like that, and the table just rocks right into the saw blade and cuts that out. And I just barely nipped it just to see what it would do and see what kind of a cut that had on it. And that old blade, I don't know if the old timers that were using this did this to it or what, but I guess they set that bite on that blade like that. The teeth, one tooth goes over to the left, one tooth goes over to the right, but that is a big blade offset on that. If you look at the saw blade itself compared to this piece of wood, I mean, that is just monstrous. Big bite on that thing. From one blade being cut one side and one blade being cut the other side, that piece of wood has that much. And just this little piece of wood wanted to bounce out of my hand, so I can't imagine trying to cut some of the slabs that I have that are, you know, 10 inches wide or wider and 6 inches thick. Trying to cut that, I don't know about that. But that's where we stand today. And I don't know, maybe next week maybe I'll have some wood cut off of it. But I think it's a work in progress. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys next time.